Here is how dedicated we are to you, our faithful listeners.
Yeah.
We just walked in the door from being away for 3 days, and the first thing we did was set up and record this podcast.
And sit down. Yep. Yep. And if it looks like I've been crying, it's because Adrian is so mean. She yelled at me the whole car ride home.
Oh, is that true?
Yeah, that's true.
Oh.
No, I just had to put eye drops in because,
Travel. Yeah.
Yeah.
So before we get into what was kind of one of the most unusual gigs we've done in certain ways. We will go back and talk about last week, and then I think most of what we're going to talk about is this crazy gig we did in California just now.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So let's do it. Let's talk.
Yeah, so last week I mentioned that I was going to sit in on a mannequin rehearsal. Mannequin is actually not one band, it's like 4 bands now. So I don't know which one it was I was sitting in on, but just to update, it went fairly well. Fairly well, given that my strength is preparation.
Right.
And at least 2/3 of what we played was just Ryan calling songs and airdropping me charts.
Yeah.
And some of those songs I'd never heard before, like a couple of the country ones I'd never heard. I did all right. I mean, I wouldn't say that I shone
right
in that situation, but I felt like I hung in there as well as my current capabilities allow me to. So I performed at the top of my level, so I was pretty happy with that.
Right.
Yeah, it wasn't terrible. It wasn't terrible at all. So, Ryan said he would put me on the sub list. So
yeah.
I consider that a success.
So it was apparently, it's good enough for that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's killer. I mean, you've been working on it a bunch, and even though those were new songs and stuff, that's...
Yeah, well, Ryan Skiles' charts are just legendarily good. I mean,
that is true.
I posted about it on Facebook, and Stephen Bott, the drummer who we know...
Oh, that's right.
...posted, the world needs more Ryan Skiles charts. And I was like, because not even, I'm, reading it live, playing with the band, and it was pretty easy to follow stuff. Some of them have, there's a lot of difficult keys in there. Not that there's really difficult keys for bass, but, there are some difficult keys in the sense that some of those charts had, 5 or 6 sharps. Or,
right.
They were in weird keys. But, you figure out what key you're in, and then you make good guesses. So.
And they're, because they're a bit more musical than we often write.
Yes.
We often would just write C, G.
Yeah. And I think I would say that the biggest challenge, so if I'm going to pull a couple of lessons out of this, of places I need to get better, one is I've spent a lot of time on number charts lately because they're very easy to transpose, and that's how I think now. Is
right.
What key are we in? Okay, great. Let's just work numbers off that. So for the moms out there, that means that if we're in the key of C, then if we're playing the chord of C, that's the 1 chord. And if we're playing the chord of D minor, that's the 2 chord, and so on. So I'm used to thinking in numbers rather than thinking in keys. And the thing that I'm good at with the numbers is it's easy to see the relationship. If we're going from 2 to 5, I know how to get from 2 to 5. I could go 2, 3, 4, 5. I could go 2, 6, 5. I could, whatever.
Right.
When I'm looking at letters, like the key of C or the key of A, I've got the chords that are appearing on the chart, I don't instantly see the relationships between them. So I have a harder time making intelligent transitions between this and that. Now, it's easy in a key like C, where I know what all the chords are in the key of C, but it's not as easy in a key with 5 flats or sharps.
Yeah.
I was just hanging on for dear life, where's my B flat? Where's my E flat?
Yeah. D flat major, you're like, oh no.
And then the other thing, let's see, there's one other thing I could get better at in reading charts is making sure to pay attention, reading a couple bars ahead, because as I was just kind of keeping up, there was a break or two that I missed. Maybe a repeat that I missed or something. But it was mainly the breaks where I could have seen that break or that riff coming, and my eyes landed on it right when it happened because I'm just barely keeping up. So there's some learning opportunities there, but it went well. So that was the mannequin rehearsal.
Yeah, and that was great.
They are top notch. Their singers are amazing. Really, really good singers.
Oh, that's so good.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah, and while you were doing that, I had a meeting up at Global Sound Studios for a new
Oh, yeah.
client who does, pop punk stuff, and it's going to be interesting because Mateo and I are going to try to tackle it a little bit tag team. I mean, I think I'm going to be producing at the top of it, but he's kind of interested in how I go through the process of working with. This is someone who just is a solo artist and has an idea for a song, and how do we take it from here's an idea for the song all the way to a finished song.
Yeah.
So we had the meeting and signed the client. So we're going to be doing that.
The story behind this client is at least the story that you've told me about this client is a little interesting in that this is not his first song; it's his second song he's recording.
Right.
And his experience with that previous song was he got it done by some pretty high-powered guy in Nashville, and right? Is that
Well, it's
right?
a Nashville guy, but they did it in Florida. It's like a
Okay. And the phrase that you told me, he said he like went in to buy a Kia or something, or
Yeah, he went in to
buy
buy
a Camry.
Yeah, he went in to buy a Honda Camry and got sold a Maserati.
Right, like it's a really well produced song, but it's way more expensive than he was aiming for.
When we were starting the discussion and they sent over the track, he sent over the track, and was like, I'm trying to do something that's a little quicker, and they apparently had worked for like 8 months on it.
Oh my gosh.
And they sent over the track, and I was like, okay, well, we might need to set expectations because this track is 100% pro. Like, both the productions and the part, and I think, and all the studio musicians on it were, I think, like, the drummer was like
Jason Aldean's drummer or something?
or Luke
Oh,
somebody.
Luke
or
Bryan's drummer?
Luke Bryan's drummer,
Yeah.
or Colt Ford's drummer. And then the bass player was similar, so it was like, I was like, if we're talking about doing something that, I mean, it's not, I wouldn't say it's a low budget, but I was like, this is like, really high end. Like,
yeah.
But, based on the whole Honda, he's really, he wants to make some demos that are good enough to share around. Mm-hmm. And the song kind of turned into, here's a full professional.
Radio ready, like
radio
pitch ready.
And I'll get it radio ready and pitch
Yeah,
ready, but
yeah.
it like,
True. But
you
that's
know.
not like, that bar isn't impossible to set. So that
no,
wasn't
but
what I was
we
trying to say,
might not have some of the ear candy, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
But that was great. Had a great meeting, and I'm excited about working with Mateo. I'm going to experiment with probably getting him to play drums on it.
Oh, cool.
And then maybe that might turn into something where when I need drums, I get Mateo to do it.
Oh, nice, yeah.
Especially
Cool.
if I can make sure he knows how to mic stuff up, or I can run up there and work with him,
Yeah.
or whatever. But
Yeah.
that would be great if I can
Have another drummer on hand. Yep.
Yeah, because I'm doing that all the time now.
Yeah.
Let's jump into the big weekend.
All right.
Before we jump into the big
Oh,
weekend, let's talk about what we did Thursday night, which was we went and saw Megan Burt.
Megan Burt at the Oriental Theater. It was her album release party. She's been working on the album for 4 years. It was an event, and she worked so hard for it.
Yeah.
You could tell. I mean, I could tell because of the Kickstarter she ran, and the individual invites that I got. I'd already bought tickets, but she's like, hey, I'm sure she was following up with everybody she knew to make sure that place was full, and it was full.
It was very full.
It was the place to be.
And her band was phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, Megan herself is phenomenal. I mean, her vocals just sounded pre-recorded or something.
I
mean,
know.
They're just so perfect.
So perfect.
Yeah. And then the band, they actually had 2 drummers.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
It was very cool. That might be something that's on the record. I mean, it sounded like there were parts that were made, to fit together. It wasn't just 2 drummers playing the exact same thing.
Right.
I don't know if they were trying to maybe there's just a bunch of percussion on the record. Either way, 2 drummers, they worked together really great. One of them was Braxton Kahn, I think.
Okay.
And I didn't know the other guy. And I need to look up who her guitar player is because that guy, phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was just a wildly professional sounding show.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they were doing our trick where they had a keyboard stand.
Yes.
So there's a kind of keyboard called a Rhodes, and they're called suitcase pianos, because they have this big case and like the Doors played them, and and then it opens up sort of like suitcase, and then you can play the keys. And they weren't synths. They were actually like they had little strips of metal in there, so that instead of needing this big long piano wires and stuff, and to make this huge piano, this thing had these little chunks of metal in there, and so when you hit a key, it actually hit the chunk of metal.
Okay.
But then there's pickups in there, so then it needs to be amplified.
Oh, okay.
So then it sounds kind of like a piano. It sounds softer and
Okay.
whatever, funkier, and you can add effects to it and stuff. Anyway, that's a Rhodes piano. You've heard it a million times. But what they had done is similar to what Patty Nix does with our piano shell, where we have a thing that looks like a baby grand piano, and there's just a synthesizer keyboard
sitting in it.
So from behind, and I got suspicious with some of the stuff I was hearing, and I was like, at first I was like, oh, that's a Rhodes, and maybe he's using a bunch of guitar pedals and making weird noises. And then I was like, all right, there's no way. And I snuck around the side of the stage, and sure enough, he had this lovely early 70s Rhodes suitcase piano
Case.
but just the shell.
Yeah.
And then he had a Roland keyboard in there. So
They stole our trick.
they stole our trick. They must have stolen it. No one has ever thought of that before.
Yeah.
Now we can get to our
Yes.
whirlwind weekend.
Woo! Yeah, this gig came up pretty late. I think we had maybe 2 weeks notice on this. 3 if at the most.
Yeah.
Our regular drummer couldn't do it, but fortunately Tyler Bender could.
Right.
So, even though he just had a baby, like 6 weeks ago.
Yeah. But we mentioned Tyler. Well, we rehearsed with him last week. Yeah.
So this was it was a birthday party for an 80th birthday party for the wife of an IT titan of some sort. And remember, we're not supposed to say any names.
Sure, of course.
So.
But as I think we said last week, it was at Pebble Beach.
Yeah. The golf course, the famous golf course.
The famous golf course.
It was in a ballroom there. It was spectacularly decorated. The
Yeah.
stage was huge. The stage was like at least a quarter of the room, if not a third. It's a really deep stage.
Yeah, it was.
Great sound guys. And we had a back line, so we just showed up with, 3 guitars and a little bit of gear, and everything else was provided.
Right.
They treated us like royalty. We had a 3-course dinner. The spread for the green room.
Oh my gosh, the green room.
Oh my gosh.
spread was
I mean,
crazy.
aside from the meal they served us, first of all, it was at this enormous table that would have seated 20 people.
Right.
And we had like 3 bottles of bourbon, and there was like chips and guacamole and these handmade cookies that were like 10 cookies. They were so good. They were,
Yeah,
I
and
ate
then
2
a
of
big
them.
candy basket.
Oh my gosh, and all kinds of drinks and
sodas,
excellent chips, and like it was just a big
chips and salsa and guacamole.
Yeah, a big spread for a band when you're also going to be serving them a 3-course meal.
I know. And then we had, actually, I will say one thing about this trip: we ate amazingly well.
I ate so much and so well. Right, we went out in Fisherman's Wharf on Cannery Row.
Cannery Row in Monterey,
with a view over the bay.
Lala's, I think,
Lala's Grill.
Yeah, you with these floor to ceiling windows, so you were like looking out on Monterey Bay, and there's seals playing out there, and you're just like watching seals play as you're like eating super fresh fish.
Yeah,
and I would say. I wouldn't hesitate to say that's one of my favorite top 5 restaurants I've ever been to.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it was really good and generous. The calamari. The best calamari I've had in my life.
The best calamari I've had in my life. That, hands down and by a mile.
I didn't even know calamari could be so big. They were like How big around? I mean, they were
like
they were like crab legs,
yeah.
or bigger than crab
Yeah.
legs.
And it was fried, but
Yeah.
it was just so fresh that there was zero rubberiness.
Yeah.
It didn't have that squiddy kind of taste that calamari can have sometimes. It was like
just rich.
It was almost. It was just rich
like
and
lobstery.
buttery. It was like really lobstery. Never had calamari like that.
Yeah.
I didn't know it could. Like you said, I didn't know it could be that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was just like, I didn't even want to put. They had sauce and. Like some greens, and they had this spicy salad.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, nope, just gonna eat the calamari. Yeah, if we get back down there,
we're going back for that calamari
there.
At least.
Yeah, not cheap, but boy, what an experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now that I've had a taste of the good life,
Yeah,
things
exactly.
are gonna get a little more expensive around here.
Yeah. Well, and then Friday. We're talking about the first night we got in, and you guys went and goofed around and played darts.
Yes, we did, and Brian Stacks won.
Of course he did.
Of course he did, and he was all modest. He's like, well, anybody could have won.
Yeah, I know.
Which is actually kind of true. The rules that we played by, which I've never played darts in my life.
Yeah.
I threw darts, like lawn darts, when I was like 8 years old. I mean, that's like the last time I threw a dart.
Right, and that's not really...
No.
Yeah.
So the rules had to do with like hitting specific numbers on the darts.
Yeah.
Okay, so you must know this. I didn't.
Sure.
And so like my goal was just like to not hit the wall, which I met. I did not hit the wall. I didn't even hit the foam around the dartboard. I hit the dartboard every single time.
Nice.
I even got a couple bullseyes.
Wow.
But so did everybody. We played for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
So my strategy was honestly just throw it toward the center, and hopefully I'll collect the numbers as I go. And then, but Tyler Bender has a lot of experience. He was working his way down the board. He was like nailing 320s, and then nailing 319s, and then nailing 318s, and he was just going in order.
Right.
And I was like, damn. But in spite of the difference in our abilities, from Tyler all the way down to me, we never had a spread of more than like 4 or 5 points from the top person to the bottom person.
That's actually really impressive.
And I think it's just because of the randomness of it.
Well, yeah, if you're just throwing... if you can hit the board, you're going to hit something.
Yeah.
So, were you doing like doubles and triples?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I believe sometimes that's called baseball.
Okay.
Because you're kind of scoring it like baseball.
Okay.
In terms of doubles and triples.
Okay,
And, yeah. Could be wrong also. Yeah, we kind of split up, and Vic and I went back to the hotel. And you guys hung out for more. Let's talk about the show.
Okay.
Although you guys went on some unbelievable hikes.
Do you want to talk about the show or the hikes next?
Let's cover the show first.
Okay.
So, it was in a ballroom.
Yeah.
Very nice stage. I wouldn't guess more than 100 people.
No, I think it was like 70.
Yeah. And I was expecting it to be pretty low key.
Yeah, you were a little worried that we weren't the right booking for this.
Yeah, and then as it turned out, they had seen us on YouTube and chosen us based on
my costumes, I think. No.
Yeah. I mean, I think they,
He did ask. We met the guy who hired us.
And they said,
the guy throwing the party.
Yeah.
And he said, are you gonna like put on that black cape and spin around? And I was like, yes, I am. Are you
Yeah.
gonna put on the white thing and fly? And I was like, yes, I am.
Yeah. And I mean, I think they got presented a bunch of people to choose from.
Yeah.
But they knew what they were getting.
Yeah.
And I was worried they didn't know what they were going to get. But apparently they had seen a bunch of it on YouTube.
Yeah. And everybody danced from the beginning of the first song.
Which also surprised
Shocked
me.
me. Yeah.
People were raring to go.
Yeah.
And so we did one quick set, and then you guys did a happy birthday. Which is also first time ever.
Yeah.
And then they did a little cake thing, and we took a very short break, and then we came back and played an hour and a half.
Yeah.
2 maybe.
Yeah. Probably an hour and a half, hour 40.
Yeah.
And I felt like it ended really well. And it was interesting, we thought that we were going to go into this and we thought we were going to do our best to do our show.
Right.
Because that's what we do. And then there were repeated changes to the set lists. I mean, a week out, 2 days out, the day of, the afternoon of, at the venue. I mean, constant requests for
Right.
changes to the set list and the timing of it. And please do a couple of Fleetwood Mac songs first. And we're like, I'm just like, the set is a mess. You know, I've printed it. I'm like scribbling. And so finally we gave up the idea of putting on our show. We're like, well, we're just going to play our songs. It's not going to be a show. We're just going to play the songs the way that we have them laid out. And it ended up being a show.
And by the end of it, it turned into much more of a concert vibe.
Yeah.
Because
I think it's partly because they were really paying more attention than I thought they were going to.
Right.
And we defaulted into our standard performance personalities. So
yeah,
we have the habit of we do what we do. And by the end, you know, it was instead of, okay, here's a big difference between a wedding band and like a show band, I guess is what I'll call it.
Yeah, a show band.
Is with a wedding band, people are there dancing with each other and like there's music happening, but they're not like, it's not about the artist. They're not standing there watching the artist.
Right.
They're standing there dancing with each other and having conversations and stuff. By the end of our show here, and the difference being like when we play a show, like people are standing facing us. Yes, they may be dancing, but the whole room is facing us.
Yeah, exactly.
And by the end of this, the whole room was standing and facing us.
And I think we did that thing we've talked about so often that by the end it had really turned into a crowd.
Yeah.
Like it had gotten that.
It was unified.
Yeah. Like everybody was sort of on the same page.
Yeah.
Having the same experience.
Yeah.
Which I didn't think that show was going to be like that.
Yeah.
Under those circumstances, just it wasn't people packed in and it was in a ballroom and there's all these reasons for that not to happen.
Yeah.
But it eventually did, and it felt like when we ended the show, it felt like
the end of a concert.
Felt like the end of a concert. No real takeaways for me other than, man, trust your material. I mean, it's not our material; it's cover stuff. But the part of it that is our material is like
the way we do it.
The way we do it, and it's just like. You know, you have to modify it some, and we had to do a custom song, and we had to do this and that. Mm-hmm. But then when we got to a certain point, maybe for the last hour, it was just like, nope, guys, like...
This is the show we do.
This is the show we do, and just knock it out, you know?
Let's mention that request. So this is funny. The first time ever I saw Your Face, famously done by Roberta Flack, mm-hmm. and several other artists covered it as well. That was the special request, and I did not know where to put that in the set. It did not feel like it fit anywhere. So I stuck it in a place that I thought it fit best. And we ran it at soundcheck because I think they wanted to... No, did they want to hear it?
Yeah.
They wanted to hear it?
Yeah.
Okay. So we ran it at soundcheck, and Julian talked to someone, and they said, well, you guys sound much better than the band who did that last night. And we were like, what? So it's a 2-day party. They had a singer from Santana. I don't know which era, but
no, I didn't catch exactly who it was, but
they were gonna have someone from the Eagles.
They were going to have the Eagles.
Oh,
it's just that the Eagles are in a residency in Vegas.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know that they could have gotten them, but they were willing to pay enough. Uh-huh. They were seriously considering getting the Eagles.
Instead, they had someone from Santana.
Yeah.
So we were like, so first of all, what a party, 2 nights.
Right.
Second, we were in consideration equal to the Eagles for this party. Okay, cool. And third, they're playing the special request both nights.
I know.
So anyway, but...
and who knows if the Eagles would have done it even for... who knows how much money they were... But they may still have been like, that's...
But to even be like...
Yeah.
Hired for a party where... The people, I don't doubt they could afford it.
Yeah, no.
Based on everything
but
I saw.
It did feel a little bit like somebody being like, there's no seats at Ruth Chris Steakhouse. Let's just go get a hot dog at the 7-Eleven.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to equate us to the Eagles.
But like the budget disparity between the two was like, just like...
Yeah. I doubt the Eagles would have played for what we got paid for.
I was planning on getting a $150 steak.
Let's go get a 75-cent hot dog.
75-cent hot dog. That'll be fine too. And you know what? Those are good hot dogs. So,
But it was fun to sing that song because it was. I don't often sing such a slow ballad, such a
Right.
touching,
Light.
light
Yeah.
ballad. And we were talking about this on the way home. I enjoyed singing it because I like under singing.
Right.
I like knowing that I'm in control of my voice and the room enough and confident enough that I don't need to put anything extra on it. I can here and there, little note bend here, little tiny riff there, but mostly I undersing, and it's so much more powerful that way.
You just did it fresh and clean and
Yeah.
clear. Yeah.
It keeps my mind on the lyrics rather than my mind on vocal acrobatics.
Boy, is that a...
Which is the pet peeve of mine when singers are all about the
Oh,
vocal
me-
acrobatics rather than actually singing something meaningful.
Yeah, actually singing the words.
Yeah.
I get it. I have the same thing. I really love doing that on guitar solos where it's like, let me just do kind of the minimum possible, but the tasty stuff, but
Yeah.
just like that's really fun to do. Yeah, so long story short, that was that gig and seemed to go very well and we...
Somebody mentioned a party in Spain they might want to hire us for.
Who knows? I mean...
That was about as real as the limo driver who was telling us that he was putting together a music festival and would $35,000 plus travel be enough for us to come.
Yeah. Which we said, yes.
We said, no, Vic said, well, we'll have to look at it.
Yeah. Would love to see a contract.
Yeah.
Yeah, so real quickly, I think we should cover what a great trip it was and how gorgeous that part of California is. I mean, California overall,
Oh, my gosh. Yeah.
phenomenal.
Love California. It's the place of dreams.
Yeah.
But, so Brian and Julian and I hiked on Friday morning? Friday? Wait.
No, Saturday morning and Sunday morning.
Sunday morning. Well, Julian and I hiked on Sunday morning. Brian also hiked
Oh, Brian, yeah.
the first night. We went down to Point Lobos State Park,
Yeah,
something
I'm
like
sure,
that.
Yeah.
Gorgeous. Just, I mean, rocky outcroppings. It was a kind of, it's just like this part of the land that sticks out on the western edge of Monterey. And
It's very jagged, cliffy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there were all these old cypress trees and all of this lichenized fungus that looks like Spanish moss.
Oh, wow.
But isn't Spanish moss, hanging from the trees. And it was all misty and foggy.
Foggy.
It was like, it would like bang for the buck, like every step you took, like every mile you walked, there was just so much to see. It was just gorgeous.
I'm so glad you did that, and I'm so glad Julian did too, because he loves
the ocean.
and he loves seeing new stuff, and
Yeah.
and I was, interestingly, I spent most of the weekend, I felt like it was a crazy productive weekend for me, beyond doing the show. I spent most of my off time remotely recording drums for an EP, and we got an EP worth of drums done.
That's great.
He's finishing up right as we speak. But we were able to do it remotely, meaning just a lot of phone calls, and he would like send me an MP3 and be like, hey, I did this take. It was something where I had really mocked up the drums, meaning programmed fake drums to be like, this is really close to what we want. Sure, put a drummer spin on it, but this is basically what we want. And it was funny too, because we had one of those, I've talked about this before. I was saying to Vic when we were waiting at the gate, when we started, it was kind of like, he was like, I feel these parts are really boring and I want to add all this stuff, and let me do a take and I'll put a bunch of stuff in it. And I was like, no, this project needs to sound really young. It needs to sound like this is a kid who's really good, but he's only been playing for like 5 years, and he's practiced super hard for his first recording. So it's super solid and it's super tight, but he doesn't know like tricky fills. Like he just knows da 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 and jacko kukuko, and like all those kind of like real caveman kind of fills. And as soon as I explained that, he was like, oh, I get it. And so then he was off to the races, knocking stuff out. And it was just like, it helps sometimes when you're trying to make something sound like a band and there isn't a band. You just sort of make up characters in your head of who is the drummer on this record, and what licks does he know and what licks does he not know.
Yeah.
So to me, it will stick out sometimes to where, like, the drummer in that band doesn't know that lick. Or,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. When we do Stevie Nicks covering somebody else's song, like we did Rock and Roll for a while.
Right.
Led Zeppelin's Rock and Roll. Stevie does not do runs.
Right.
She does not do any non-obvious notes, really, like, you know, 2s and 4s and 6s very often. She doesn't do sustained notes which sometimes she does do sustained notes.
Yeah, sure.
But she certainly doesn't do anything, like, embellishment based or tricky with her voice. And so when I was learning that song, I was, like, tempted to, like, put my spin on it. And I was like, nope, you are being Stevie Nicks. She would not put a riff or run on that. So just sing it straight and flat. Just deliver it. And that, it's like, you have to put on someone else's voice with, like, their preferences and their capabilities.
And and I do the same thing with guitar. I mean, obviously I play a lot of it pretty true to how Mike Campbell does. Or a lot of what I play is, like, from live versions that I've cherry picked. So it is something Campbell played, but it's just maybe not what's on the record. But also when I'm improvising, I'm also careful to stay within Campbell's vocabulary.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure is way wider if you just, like, hung out with him and he wasn't being the guitar player for Tom Petty.
Right.
But when he's being the guitar player for Tom Petty, he has a certain vocabulary, and so I can improvise, but I'm only improvising using that guy's vocabulary.
Exactly.
You know, so I'm not going to play any licks that he wouldn't play.
Right. That's some advanced musicianship right there.
I guess it is. Anyway, we had a beautiful time. The food was just something else. That's one thing about California. The food is
my God. Yeah.
Just everything is great. And you guys had a great time hiking and
yeah.
But we flew out Friday, did the show, and then flew back. So we're not tired.
Yeah, well, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I mean, we didn't fly out the day of the show, thank goodness.
No, that would have been really
it would have been
stressful.
Too much.
Yeah.
So now, but I'm headed back to California in 2 days.
Yeah, let's talk what's
3
coming
days.
up.
So I got a wild hair a couple weeks ago. I saw that Sofia Isela, one of my new favorite artists, is playing in LA and all up and down the California coast. She's probably, I wonder if she's in Monterey right now.
She might be. I mean,
because she's working her way down the coast this week. Anyway, she's in LA on Wednesday and San Diego on Thursday, and I'm going to both of those shows. And then it just so happens this is family reunion weekend. I couldn't go to family reunion because I have a diamond gig on Saturday, which is the main night for family reunion.
Which is the main weekend for family.
But my mom and Burdette are going to be there, so I'm going to see them, and I'm going to see my brother and his wife.
Great.
Yeah. So that'll be good.
I think it's so great that you're so interested in a new artist that you're just making it happen to see him live because you just like her so much.
I couldn't believe it could fit in my schedule. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
just quick 2 days.
That's why you work the way you work, is that you can sometimes do stuff like this. Not all the time. I designed
this life.
Yeah, exactly. But you do have a Deb gig.
And I hope I get that set list pretty soon because I can't practice on Wednesday or Thursday. So that show's on Saturday. And then Sunday morning I have a church gig, which I haven't had in a while. So I'll have music to learn for that too. Yes. But at this point, that seems so easy compared to everything else I've learned recently.
I know. But didn't you get a real compliment?
Oh my gosh.
From the Tunisia gig from...
Yeah. Nate passed this on. Thank you, Nate. Arlen, the drummer and band leader of Tunisia, reached out to Nate, apparently, and thanked him for recommending me, and what was it? Nothing short of stupendous, or something along those lines. Like a real compliment passed along.
Yeah.
I was so pleased. Thank you, Nate. Thank you, Nate, for passing it along, for giving me the opportunity in the first place.
It was positive. I read it as a real dig about your height, but overall it was...
Nothing short.
Yeah. Short didn't need to be in that sentence. Like, he knew what he was doing. He knew what he was... You know what I mean?
She's short, but she's all right.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks, Justin.
Yeah. Anyway, well, let's close it down.
Yeah,
Any last thoughts or?
Well, I had a couple things that I learned at the mannequin rehearsal that I mentioned. Did we have anything? We learned something at this birthday party we did, which is rely on the show that you know.
Yeah.
Just do the show you know. And also, there's a little more flexibility in our set than I realized.
Yeah, that's really true because we were really outside of our normal flow that we've talked about. And in that instance, at least, it didn't really matter that much.
I don't think it's a typical situation, though.
No. There was an interesting part where whatever was right before landslide, I don't remember what it was.
Edge of 17.
Edge of 17. Dance floor was fully full. People were going nuts.
Yeah.
And my instinct in the moment was to say, cut landslide, keep them dancing.
I considered that.
But then I thought about it and I was like, well, we've got X amount of time left.
And we're going to be raging that whole time.
And yeah. And so it's probably great to take a break at this high point.
Yeah.
And bring them back down for this emotional point.
And then they will be, they'll get a break and they can come back.
And then you can rocket ship back out for the rest of the set, and then end on this crazy high note. So it was like one of those kind of like, and then I was like, no, let's just see how this plays out.
Yeah.
And it worked.
Yeah.
So this week we are sponsored by Lulu's, and I hope I'm saying that right.
Lala's.
Lala's.
Not even close. Lalla apostrophe S.
We lost another sponsor.
On Cannery Row in Monterey.
Yep, well, they've already paid us, so too bad.
In fish.
Yeah, they paid us in fish. And Monterey, in general, you get a chance to go to that part of the coast. It's really nice. Mm-hmm. I spent a lot of time up there, Big Sur and Santa Cruz when I lived out there because it was a relatively short drive. Mm-hmm. And it was just great to be back there. And boy, you walk outside and it's all cool in the mornings. Yeah. And there's something. It's a magical place. So we're sponsored by Lala's, the state of California.
Wow.
Yeah.
The state of California.
And we'll see if the check clears.
We're moving up.
And as always, by Performance High.
Voice and Music Studio.
Thank you guys. Bye.
See you next week.